Liverpool, without Mohamed Salah, pull off a Champions League win against Inter. Barcelona, in a heroic fight, come back to beat Eintracht. Chelsea can't handle Atalanta. And there's a full-on injury crisis at Real Madrid right before their clash with Manchester City. We'll talk about all that and more today, friends. This is your daily dose of football and a hot rundown of the most interesting stories of the hour. Today's video is a bit shorter than usual. I'm recording it on the road, so I hope you'll cut me some slack. If we somehow get 10 likes on this one, tomorrow I'll drop a full, regular top 10 again, so I'm counting on your support. And as always, if you're watching this while eating, enjoy your meal and enjoy the show. Real Madrid have run into a truly brutal injury crisis right before their game against Manchester City. A match that could end up deciding Xabi Alonso's future. The worst news came in their recent La Liga game, where Eder Militao picked up a serious injury. Early reports say he's out for several months. Dean Huijsen is also injured and will miss the game, and David Alaba is out yet again, which sadly has become a familiar story. There are serious doubts about whether Antonio Rudiger will be able to play. If you ask the logical question, who is actually going to start at center back? The most realistic answer is a throwback to last season's emergency pairing, Aurelien Tchouameni and Marco Asensio. On the right side of defense, Federico Valverde will most likely be pushed back. Dani Carvajal and Trent Alexander-Arnold also won't be able to play against City. So, we're looking at a back line where 2 of the 4 positions will probably be covered by midfielders. That alone is scary enough, but there's more. Spanish and French outlets are reporting at the same time that Kylian Mbappe is also very unlikely to feature against City. Earlier, we heard about a broken toe, which already sounded like a big enough reason to miss a game at this level. But Mbappe wanted to play and was ready to go out there even with that fracture. Then came the Celta match, where he took a hit to his knee. The joint swelled up, and now the medical staff are advising him not to risk it to avoid making things worse. It's still unclear how Kylian himself will react. He's stubborn enough to ignore advice, but right now the chances of him starting look minimal. And to top it all off, Eduardo Camavinga, one of Madrid's key midfielders, is injured too. So this is what we end up with. Center back basically empty. Right back, empty. Midfield loses balance because everyone is being shuffled around to plug holes. Attack likely missing the most dangerous player on the team. That's the situation Xabi Alonso walks into for a crucial Champions League showdown with Manchester City. Sergio Ramos' contract with Monterrey is expiring soon, and after that he'll be a free agent. The Spaniard wants to return to Europe and give himself a shot at a call-up from Luis de la Fuente for the World Cup. And interest from European clubs is growing. First, there were reports that Milan might sign him. The Rossoneri have never been shy about working with, let's say, very experienced players. Zlatan Ibrahimovic and Luka Modric can confirm that. Then came rumors of a return to Real Madrid. Given the defensive injury mess over there, bringing Ramos back sounds almost logical. But it seems at least one big decision maker at the club is strongly against that idea. Now, there are reports of interest from Manchester United. The Red Devils could use the opportunity to grab a short-term reinforcement. So what could Ramos bring to Ruben Amorim's team? First, a winner's mentality. When you look at United's current squad, how many players can say they've spent years playing and winning at the very highest level? You don't see many names. The only one truly in that category is Casemiro, Ramos' former teammate at Real. And the Brazilian clearly isn't the same player away from Madrid. Ramos, on the other hand, looks like the kind of person who doesn't care what crest is on his chest. He'll play with the same intensity and the same insane will to win anywhere. Second, Ramos would add depth. United don't exactly have a brutal schedule this season. After getting knocked out of the cup by Grimsby, they're basically playing 1 game a week. Luxurious conditions for a top club. But even if you're not overloaded with fixtures, having an extra veteran defender you can rely on is almost always better than not having him at all. From that angle, Ramos makes a lot of sense for Amorim if the deal is right. Short-term, cheap, hugely experienced. Motivated by one last World Cup chance, it's hard to see a downside. And the story about a possible return to Real Madrid isn't completely dead either. You can see with your own eyes how grim things look in their back line, especially in the middle. It's clear that Florentino Perez really doesn't want to go back to signing 40-year-old legends, no matter how iconic they are. But if Real don't bring in anyone for the defense this winter, they risk repeating last season, when at times they literally had 0 available center backs. Ancelotti had to plug every hole with midfielders, and that almost cost them a whole year without trophies. To me, that scenario looks scarier than the idea of bringing back a veteran who's about to enter his 5th decade. We've already had our first big World Cup controversy, and the tournament hasn't even started yet. US President Donald Trump has reportedly threatened to move a World Cup match out of Seattle, calling the city's mayor a liberal communist. The match hasn't been moved, but the local organizing committee has definitely lit a fuse. Here's the core of the problem. The Seattle organizers announced that the game scheduled for June 26 will be dedicated to LGBTQ+ themes. They made that call before even knowing which teams would actually be playing. The draw then paired Egypt and Iran in that slot. In Egypt, same-sex relations are outlawed. In Iran, they can be punishable by death. The president of the Iranian Football Federation, Mehdi Taj, said he'll push to change Seattle's decision. We and Egypt have both lodged a protest on this issue. This is an unreasonable decision aimed at supporting a specific group, and we will definitely discuss it. The situation is obviously very tense. Ideally, it needs to be resolved before the World Cup kicks off. If the city sticks to its plan, you could get serious friction. Visiting fans from Egypt and Iran, local fans supporting the city's initiative. 2 very different worldviews colliding in one stadium. No one wants that to escalate into chaos. Security officials will be on high alert either way. Trump hasn't actually moved any games so far, but in theory, he could put pressure on the schedule, thanks to his close relationship with Gianni Infantino. Critics say Infantino is ready to bend over backwards for Trump. He even reportedly rescheduled a key meeting with UEFA for him, which really annoyed Alexander Cheferin. And after the FIFA president presented Trump with a special Peace Prize, Infantino himself was accused of crossing FIFA's line on political neutrality. FIFA is supposed to stay neutral, but the Swiss president is being accused of pushing too close to one side's agenda. In theory, for breaking FIFA's own rules, Infantino could face a fine, a formal reprimand, or even a ban from football activities. In practice, though, those decisions are made by football officials, the same ecosystem he's part of. So most observers doubt anything serious will actually happen to him, even if he'll clearly waft all over the organization's written rules. Eintracht have one of the worst defenses in the Bundesliga, maybe in all of the top 5 leagues. So their game against Barcelona looked like a guaranteed goal fest on paper. But the first half was played under the slogan, "Your expectations are your problem." Eintracht parked the bus like peak Mourinho. It was almost hard to believe this was the same attacking Eintracht we're used to. That's how disciplined and compact they were. They completely erased Barcelona's space. The forwards had no room to turn, no lanes to pass into, and no ideas near the box. And as per Barca tradition, they conceded on the counter. Eintracht's body language screamed, "We're gonna win this 1-0 and go home." Robert Lewandowski was swallowed whole by the German defense and couldn't create anything. Then Jules Koundé took over. The defender scored twice, finishing 2 crosses like a season number 9. Marcus Rashford and Lamine Yamal put in 2 gorgeous deliveries right onto his head. And in the space of 3 minutes, Barca flipped the match on its head. Yamal, by the way, broke Kylian Mbappe's Champions League goal plus assist record for players 18 and under. Not bad for someone who supposedly doesn't chase stats. Meanwhile, Chelsea, who not so long ago barely noticed Barca in direct clashes, couldn't cope with Atalanta. On paper, 2 pressing teams should have meant a fun end-to-end game with chaos in midfield. Instead, we got a surprisingly flat, scrappy match that probably had some hardcore fans of both sides quietly switching channels. Chelsea scored first, and still lost. Lately, the Blues look heavy and drained, as if every opponent is just fresher. Not so long ago, everyone was praising Enzo Maresca and his ideas. And now Chelsea have gone 4 games in a row without a win. If this run doesn't stop soon, the rumors about a possible change on the bench will start. That's almost guaranteed in London. Let's quickly stop in Munich before we get to the big one. Bayern, who lost to Arsenal earlier, still managed to impress in their own way. Yesterday, they faced a very awkward opponent, Sporting. Sporting defend deep. Don't get baited into crazy duels in midfield and make you work hard for every chance. Bayern conceded first, but stayed calm, trusting their fitness and quality. In the end, intensity and class brought them 3 points. 17-year-old Leonard Carl scored in his 3rd consecutive Champions League game, the youngest player ever to do that. The match was also notable because Alphonso Davies made his first appearance after tearing his ACL, and because the Bayern fans put on an absolutely wild tifo and pyro show. Bayern will almost certainly get fined for that, as club CEO Jan-Christian Driesen admitted. Now to the main event of the day, Inter versus Liverpool. On paper, Inter were favorites. Home stadium, Liverpool in a rust patch, Salah drama in the background. Everything seemed to point toward a Nerazzurri win. But Christian Chivu once again came up short in a big game. Liverpool ground out a narrow, very managerial win, if we put the referee to one side for a moment. Arne Slot understood that his team's main problem was their shaky defense, so he decided to focus on stability at the back, above everything. That hurt them in attack, but Inter genuinely looked toothless. Slot had no Chiesa, no Gakpo, no Salah, so he went with an interesting idea, a diamond midfield to compensate for the lack of wingers. It looked raw but promising. This shape lets you use both Dominic Szoboszlai and Florian Wirtz in their ideal zones, and right now, they're Liverpool's two best players. The Reds executed Slot's plan from start to finish. The discipline was excellent, and that shows that whatever is happening around Salah is not some full-scale locker room rebellion, more like a lone, very loud protest. Liverpool started really turning the screws on Inter late in the match. Classic Nerazzurri. They ran out of gas again because their squad isn't exactly young, and eventually cracked on a very controversial penalty. Formally, referee Felix Break was within the rules, pointing to the spot. Bastoni really was pulling Wirtz's shirt clearly, but the ball was already drifting away. Wirtz's fall was extremely theatrical. His legs seemed to give way only after Bastoni had already let go. You can spin it how you want, but it's hard to shake the feeling that the ref gave Liverpool a huge helping hand. That said, the Reds actually played pretty well overall. One thing is clear, Salah shouldn't be counting on Slot getting fired anytime soon off the back of this. That's all for today. Thanks for watching and for subscribing to the channel. Your support really helps keep this whole thing going. This was your daily dose of football. Peace to your home and Johanga, friends.